in China with Christianity. Most of those missionaries that were working in China in the 40s and 50s, they retreated to either Hong Kong, to Singapore, or to Taiwan. Okay? And I am personally a beneficiary of some of their work because I grew up in Taiwan, and some of the missionaries came and worked in my local church in Taiwan and helped us and brought a lot of resources. But they worked there only because they cannot go back to China anymore. So nobody knows what's going on for 30 years. And as we kept on going, then you found out the amazing stat. And there are all kinds of different statistics out there about how many Christians are in China. There are probably two best figures that I can cite from. One is from Yang, and he's a professor from Purdue University. And the other person is Ronnie Stark, which is co-author the book, the first book that I showed you guys. He is a professor in Baylor University. Both of them project Christianity. There are about 60 to 70 million of Christians in China at this point. The official number from the communist government is probably about 30 million. And then some other evangelical leaders that you might hear from other places, they will go upward to about 100, 120. But this is a figure that I trust the most because they're very careful sociologists that they did a lot of study. And not just them, that both many other sociologists and historians predict by the rate and the conversion rate that was going on in China, by either somewhere between 2030 to 2035, there will be more than 250 million Christians in China. And China is going to be the country with most Christians. That means 15 more years. We're in the very early stage of explosive growth. Very, very explosive growth. How did it get there? What happened? It was predicted it's going to be dead. It was going to be nobody, Christianity is going to die in China. What happened? I mean, besides, obviously, God works in mysterious ways, right? We'll kind of maybe go through some of the historical context, some of the social context, and I'll offer some of my observations and my personal experience. So the historical context with what happened in China, as I said before, 1949, that's the founding year of People's Republic. 1950s, they were implementing, trying to experimenting with a lot of social kind of working. Okay, there's a thing called Great Leap Forward, and it actually really didn't leap forward very much. Okay, they try to gather everybody's pots and pans at home, and then try to make it into bullets, and didn't go very far. Okay, and there were a lot of famines, and just bad things happened all around. Okay, in the 60s, this is probably what you have heard. It's a cultural revolution, and what happens then was that they were trying to go back and say, the Confucianism, all this old study, Chinese culture, it's just backward. It doesn't fit the proletarian idea, this communist idea. So we're going to take them all out, not just the imperialistic, Western outsiders. So they took out a lot of great ancient books and all the old cultures, and then bang, burned down the temple and whatever. Okay. So in 1980s, finally, we have this person, the leader, his name is Deng Xiaoping. So he finally wanted to open up China to reform, and starting from there on, there is a lot of economic development. In 1990s to present, there's just explosive growth. Now, there are investors that come to my neighborhood in Cupertino and scoop up houses with cash. I found out last year there was some robbery that took place in my neighborhood. And I'm like, this is like one of the safest neighborhoods there is, right? And it's actually happened like 4 or 5 doors down. And I kind of got to know the couple, and I found out they're retired from China, and didn't ask too much, but I figured it out. They were basically like official. They used to be official in China. They got some cash. They came to America, and apparently they store some cash in their house So people knew, okay? So it's large enough amount, okay? So this is what's going on, okay? So that's what's the situation right now. And there's explosive growth, there's a lot of just kind of economic growth, okay? So that's the historical context in a very broad stroke, okay? Do you guys have any questions so far, or? I feel like I'm giving you a social history class. Okay, so just because you know what? You might have some friends at work, or neighbors that came from China. I'm just describing to you what happens to their parents and their grandparents. This is what my grandparents went through, okay? And because of this history, it contributes to some of the social context that I'm gonna help you understand. So what is a social context? So what happens now is that because, how many of you have iPhone? Take it out. Or smartphone? Oh, thank you. Yes, you have an iPhone. I'll tell you a story later, okay? But there are 260 million, maybe not all of them, but a good 3 million of them is making your iPhone, okay? And they are called the migrant workers. Why? Because they migrate from the inside part of China, which is more inland, to the coastal cities, because that's where they manufacture the phone, they put it together, and they ship it over here. They are 260 million. That's more than America, right? Population. Okay, this is about 20% of China's population. Okay, their monthly salary is about what? Less than $400. And they have no permanent place to stay in the city that they work at. And actually, PBS recently just did a whole study about the greatest migration of human history. And what is that? It's on the Chinese Lunar New Year. Why? Because 260 million of them are trying to all get back to their home province to be together with their family. Okay? And for a span of 2 weeks, people get stuck that's the picture that you see. They're stuck in the train station trying to find a way home. Okay, they left their province, the village, the farm, so that they can find a better future. That's a social context. This is what's going on. And by the way, that they say about the 60 to 70 millions between the 80s and 90s, when the Christians are really rapidly growing, where nobody knew where they came from. They're mostly happening in the villages, in the farming community, okay? And then later on, because of this migrant workers, that there's obviously a very dire shift even in the evangelism strategy. Now they have to deal with people that moved away in the cities, and how do you minister to them, and the Christian church and things like that. Okay, so now I'm going to go into a little personal stories, because I had an opportunity to kind of train both the leaders in the countryside and in the city. So I'll show you some pictures. Okay, this is a picture actually my wife brought back, because she was with Dr. Ekman last year in Beijing training in the university. And hey, high rises, nice breakfast, it doesn't look like cereal, but it's something that you can get in Ranch 99. I mean, come on, okay? Pretty up to standard, nice hotel rooms and decent bathrooms. And next slide, please. And she played tours, that's great, and she has some really nice college-educated translators that worked with her, and they were teaching psychology to a bunch of master's degree students. Awesome. And when I go to a city, this is what I do. Next slide. That's the most dangerous thing I have done for Christ. I actually did write it. It wasn't just posing. So there's one training center I have between where I stay, they put me up, and where the room is, it was about 10-minute riding of this motorcycle. So that was an experience in itself. So please pray for me continually, which I'll be going back in 2 weeks to this exact same city. in Zhenzhou. This is the Zhenzhou place. Okay, let me show you some picture of the village. And by the way, this is drastically different. Okay, this is on paved road. I was in a farming community, and if you see the bottom, the road has just like water. It has trash everywhere. It's all over the place. Okay, all right. That's next picture. And the bottom left, I am taking a picture. That's a church building. Okay, to get to this church building, let me tell you what happened. We had made a connection, and they told us to get dropped off at the bus station of the city. So we took a bus of 3 hours from a major city to go to this middle of nowhere China. Got off the bus station. There's a black van that came over. They immediately know who we are. And they took us and shoved us into the black van. Boom, locked us in. And we drove 40 minutes to this church site. And they locked the gate behind us. We were inside for 7 days. Teaching from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. every single day. Okay? They were afraid. And the church is the courtyard that you show on the side, on the right there. That's where we kind of hang out the whole day long. Okay? And right next door is that house, like on the left top. There's chicken running around and pigs running around. You wake up to the rooster every morning, and that's the village. Okay, this is a contrast that you have between the rural China and Beijing, the capital. Okay, a huge difference. All right, next slide, please. And this is how we ate. You know, they actually have a cook that just cook with like charcoal fire, and then they were stir frying stuff, you know, and smells like really good. Right before at 11 o'clock, the smoke will come into our classroom, and we'll be like, but that's a bathroom, by the way. On the bottom left, you squat and you go. The most, and by the way, I like to think that I am a much better missionary than Dr. Eggman. So I usually can take a lot of really rural places and adapt and what's the situation. One of the things that I just could not adapt is those guys, they actually do squat and do their business right next to each other without, if you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so they just go, okay, and I can't do that. Even though as much as I want to try to be a good missionary there, okay? Next slide. Then that's the church building, okay? Finally, on the last day, they let us out. And they're like, okay, you guys can walk around now. We're going to go. We're going to take you guys out. So we walk outside, and kind of, that's the church building inside China, okay? And in fact, they say that during the holidays, during Christmas or Easter, they can gather up to 300 people in the whole facility, okay? And they gather Christians from maybe 50-mile radius, and they will ride their motorbike or their truck and come in and fellowship. And most of the other times, you know, they have a smaller group in different villages. It's just like different villages of, you know, I don't know, 500, 1,000 people, farming communities. So we just saw this farming community. What is their need? Let me show you the migrant workers, where they end up. This is where they end up. Okay? They eviscerated, they gather all those people from the farming community, the rural areas. They displace maybe 60% of the farmers, and they come to the big city to work so that you have your iPhone, and I have my iPhone. Okay? One time, go to the next slide, please. Then we can come back. Okay. One time, I was training in this training center on the bottom over here, and there are about 30 students, you can see. And right outside when I go to the city and train some of the leaders and pastors there, I usually go. It's a 2-bedroom apartment, and their living room will be converted right into this classroom. And one of the rooms basically are reserved for the teachers, and I will stay there for a week. Okay. And right outside the window, go back to the last slide, please, was one of those complex. Okay. This complex of Foxconn that hosts 150,000 people. One complex, they live there, they eat food there, they do all their business there, they manufacture this giant complex, and they have a few gates. And as I look out from that training center, hundreds, if not thousands, just flooding out. And do you know that, I mean, this is what Jesus, when Jesus says, sheep without shepherd. Why? They are from 18 years old to about 40 years old. They leave their home for $400 a month on average. Okay? Many of them, those ladies over there, do you know how many of them they left their kids 2, 5, 10 years old with their grandparents so that they can come out and make $400 a month? Why can they bring them? Because China has a policy where you cannot bring your kids to the city that you're working with migrant working.